Welcome to NFL World, where NFL starts and ends. I'm your host, Jacob. And before we get into previewing Week 11 in the NFL, let's recap what happened in Week 10 on Monday Night Football between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers. The game ended in a 10-7 victory for the Philadelphia Eagles. This was a game. That's the only way I can describe it. It was not good offense. The defenses were really good. Jalen Phillips, the addition from the Miami Dolphins, was very impactful. But the Packers' defense also was impactful. They did a lot of good things. They held Saquon Barkley to 60 rushing yards. Jalen Hurts really couldn't do much of anything. He turned the ball over in this game. Jordan Love did the same thing. Just the offenses couldn't get going. And it feels like every time I watch the Philadelphia Eagles play this year, it feels like 2023 all over again. They're not able to run the football very well. They're not able to really move the ball, or at times the offense dies out. And in this case, it's for halves it's for different halves of a game. It gets ridiculous. That reminds me of 2023. They were 10-1. They weren't playing great, but they were winning games. And then they ran into San Francisco. They lost that game. And then the next thing you know, they go and play. They end up going and losing the fourth of the next five, and that's how they finished off. They went from a number one seed to barely making the playoff. Like that's how that bad it got. So the same thing goes for this year. Like I don't think they're playing the best football. Now that's good and bad. The bad is you're in November. You should be playing your best football. The good is, hey, we're winning games. We're not even playing our best football. So let's get that turned on. Let's get that going and let's go. We'll be unstoppable. So there's two sides to this coin here. But I don't like how they played. I don't think it was good. They don't get the ball to A.J. Brown enough. Devontae Smith made a great play, but it feels like every time this Eagles team needs a play during a course of a drive, they can't get it. The game's gonna go on and on and on, and then we'll make a miracle play and we'll win the game. That's what it feels like. And in this case, instead of it being the offense is holding up their end of the bargain, but the defense isn't, it's the opposite. It's the opposite. The defense is holding up their end of the bargain, but the offense is not. It's what it feels like. And it felt that way for both sides in this game. So, but a win's a win for the Eagles. They get to 7-2. They're the top of the NFC. The Lions, who they face off against this weekend on Sunday Night Football, which we'll get to, are in second place in the conference. So we'll see what happens there. But let's go into Week 11's preview. The New York Jets against the New England Patriots in Foxborough, Massachusetts. 12.5-point favorites the Patriots are. The Jets have won the last two games, but every time they go against a high-power offense, they give up 30-plus points. The Patriots, even though they don't have the big-name wide receivers making plays, like A.J. Brown or anything like that, they win games in a certain way, and it's a different player every week. One day it's Stephon Diggs. One day it's Matt Collins. One day it's Kayshon Boutte. One day it's Trevion Henderson like it was against Tampa Bay. One day it's Austin Hooper. One day it's Hunter Henry. And to me, that's the best way you can play an offense because there is no ego at that point. There's no ego. It's not get me the football. It's we're going to win a game no matter what we do, and we have guys who can leave their ego at the door. That's a positive. That's a very much a positive for any team. You want to do that. You want to be in that situation. And that's what the Patriots are. The Jets might have issues with that because, like I said, You trade away your two best players in Sauce Gardner and Quinn Williams. So can you stop the run against the Patriots team that was able to get 250-plus yard touchdown runs against Tampa Bay, which we'll talk about in the next game? And can you stop the pass? It's going to be really interesting. For the Jets offense, the addition of A.D. Mitchell, we'll see if he plays tonight or Thursday night. Who knows exactly. The hope is Garrett Wilson is back. Don't know if he will be. Breece Hall looks good, but you got to be better. You got to find a way to get to another gear. Because even though you're not going anywhere fast, you only have 2 wins, you got to show some kind of improvements that you've had. And not just be, well, we played Cincinnati, we won. We played Cleveland, we won. That's not, okay, good for you, but that's not enough. So I'm curious to see what happens. But I do have the Patriots winning. I have it by more than 12.5. Patriots win 28-14. Moving on to the Buccaneers versus the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are favored by 5.5. This game is in Buffalo. Let's start off with the Bucs. Did not play well against the Patriots. I don't care what the score says. It was more than 5. They didn't lose by 5. They lost by more than 5. They were not able to stop the run. Henderson had 250-plus yard touchdowns, like I said before. Drake May did not look scared against the rush defense, the blitzing defense of Todd Bowles. It didn't bother him that much. There was some plays that were left on the field, but he did a lot of positive things. And the Patriot defense stopped your offense. That's not a good thing either. I understand you have a lot of injuries and you don't know when Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin are coming back. You don't know. There's no timetable for those guys, which to me tells me that those injuries are more serious than originally thought. For the Bills, that's something you can attack. You can attack the run game because you do have James Cook. You didn't look good against Miami. You couldn't stop them running the football, which, again, if I'm the Bucs, I would attack that too. You couldn't stop Tua from throwing the football at all. Like, you couldn't get pressure on him. You got injured. I know AJ Espinosa got injured in that game. I get that. And I know you had a lot of injuries going into that game, but you didn't play well. You did not play well. You didn't do enough positive things. Like, Tua was throwing ropes again. We hadn't seen that, and he was throwing ropes. And it's the last 2 times the Bills have faced the Miami Dolphins, they haven't looked good. And that's a concern. That's very concerning. I do think the Bills bounce back. I just don't know how their defense is going to play. But give me the Bills to win in a fun game, actually, 28-24. Moving on to the Chiefs at the Broncos. Broncos are not favored in this game. They're getting plus 3.5 at home. That just tells you how Vegas is sometimes. The Chiefs are a 5-4 team who are favored against an 8-2 team at home. Or on the road, excuse me. The Chiefs are on the road. So that's ridiculous. It makes no sense, but that's how Vegas is. Vegas, they're betting on the Chiefs. Denver, nope. Patrick Surtain. We'll see how that affects. I know Simmons, the left tackle of the Chiefs, he's coming back. But the Broncos still get pressure. They still find a way to get pressure. I'm curious to see how that affects. I have the Broncos if they're going to get pressure on you, they're going to beat you that way. The Chiefs, that's frustrating to watch. You got to figure that out. And Bo Nix, this Denver team is actually really interesting to watch. Sometimes they look really good on offense and sometimes they don't. I wonder what Steve Spagnuolo has in store for Bo Nix. I'm curious. This game is also a 425 game. This is going to be very exciting. But give me the Broncos to win because I don't trust this Chiefs team right now. The Broncos win in a really fun game. It's going to be really fun. 24-17. 20. Moving on to the Lions at the Eagles. Eagles favored by 2.5. Last time we saw the Lions play, they beat the tar out of Washington, winning the game 44-22. The Eagles, we talked about the Packers earlier in the video, did not look great. They have to get back on track. I do want to say this quickly, though. Amon-Ra St. Brown, this is a lot about him here. In the game against Washington, where Daron Payne gets ejected and then later suspended, Amon-Ra St. Brown starts that first. He threw the first jump, jab, punch, shove, whatever you want to call it. He does hit Daron Payne in the face, and Daron Payne retaliates. This is like when you're a little kid. The official did not see Amon-Ra St. Brown throw it, even throw a punch or whatever, but he was standing right there. So I kind of find it hard to believe he didn't see it, but okay. This is like when you're a little kid and your parents or teacher or whatever catches the retaliator, but not the instigator in any particular way. And that's what's happening. The instigator was Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, obviously, something else instigated it before Amon-Ra St. Brown instigated it to a higher level. That obviously could have happened. But that's why I'm shocked with the Daron Payne stuff, because that's so out of his character. But it's also so out of Amon-Ra St. Brown's character. So now you have three things you have to do if you're the NFL. You either say, we're not going to suspend Daron Payne because we didn't suspend Amon-Ra St. Brown, so we're just going to negate the suspension, negate everything. Or you can suspend both of them, which would be the better move, personally, because Daron Payne did, in fact, punch him. But Amon-Ra did it first, so you got to suspend him too. Or there is a third option, but I don't like this option. And the option being, you don't suspend Amon-Ra St. Brown, proving a precedent that we're only going to suspend the people we don't think will impact the game heavily. That's the other option, and that's where you are. And you can't be in that situation if you're the NFL. I think the second option works the best. You just suspend both of them, because you can say, hey, yeah, we suspended Daron Payne. We also suspended the guy who punched him first. Because if you don't do that, or even if you only suspend Amon-Ra St. Brown a week later, it doesn't make it better. It doesn't solve the issue, is what I'm saying. So I keep an eye out for that, but we do have to make that little note clear that it was Amon-Ra St. Brown who punched or pushed or shoved or whatever you want to call it, Daron Payne first. We do have to describe it that way. But if he does play on Sunday Night Football, I don't know how the Eagles are really going to stop this offense. When the Packers scored on that touchdown drive, they just ran the football. Running the football. What did the Lions do best? They run the football. They got Jahmyr Gibbs. They got David Montgomery. They will run the football. And then they'll attack Adoree Jackson or Ringo or Bennett or whatever. They'll attack. They'll just attack. They'll go away from Mitchell and they'll just say, okay, let's throw it on the other side. And they're going to force Mitchell to go over there, and then they're going to go the other way. That's what they're going to do. That's what smart teams do. And the reason I didn't say, well, what about Alexander? Well, this happened yesterday. It was announced that the Jair Alexander was stepping away from football, not retiring, but stepping away. And so he was placed on the non-football injury list / retirement list, even though he's not retired. So you don't lose anything, really. You only give up a 6th-round pick for him. But now you're betting on, okay, what we had before, is that still going to work? It hasn't really worked before, but is it going to work now? That's a question we'll have to wait and see. If I'm the Lions, I'm attacking that side the entire game, and I'm just saying, let's go for it. Let's go. Because you can basically force and say, okay, you're either not going to sign somebody, so we're just going to keep attacking it, or we're that confident that whoever is covering, whether it's Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jameson Williams, isn't going to beat them. And then you also have Sam Laporta. This team has so many weapons. That's the reason I don't think the Eagles will be able to stop them. And because it does feel like, I said this earlier about the Lions and how the Eagles, it feels like 2023, and they ran into San Francisco. The Lions feel like San Francisco. The way they play feels like San Francisco. The same kind of style, and that's what I think is going to happen. I do have the Lions winning. I don't think it's going to be by a lot. I just feel like the way they are going to play is going to be the blueprint to how to beat Philadelphia. That's the way I think it's going to be. Whether you can execute that blueprint, that depends. But I do think the blueprint is figured out at some point. But give me the Lions. They win this game. Score is 28-20. I think 28-20. Final game we have is Monday Night Football between the Dallas Cowboys and the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders, not favored by Vegas, plus 3.5. The Raiders, let's start with them. A lot of injuries to the offensive line. Jackson Powers-Johnson moved to injured reserve, going to miss 4 games. This offensive line it's badly injured. Colton Miller's out. You're playing Stone Forsythe at position. He's a starter for you. It's not good. This offensive line is really banged up. Geno Smith has not played great. The run game has suffered because of this offensive line. The defense has been okay. Max Crosby, I think he's going to have his pick of the litter of what he wants to do against these tackles. So there's that object. When you look at Dallas, offensively, they've been good. Defensively, not so much. This is a game that you have to show them that, okay, yeah, we can do this. Geno, yes, he's turned the ball over a lot. He also, the last time he played you, he torched you for a good portion of that game. So I'm curious to see what happens here. The matchups I have in this game is going to be legit. Cowboys tackles versus Max Crosby. Raiders interior offensive line versus Quinn Williams and the rest of the Cowboy defensive tackles. The interior of the Raiders offensive line versus the Cowboys defensive tackles. And then Brian Schottenheimer versus Pete Carroll, which is mentor versus mentee. That's what this is. This is going to get really fascinating. I do have the Cowboys winning. It's just going to get really fascinating. Give me the Cowboys to win. And since I'm a Cowboys and I will say this, it needs to be a blowout for them. It needs to be, they're coming off a bye week. They have to get better. They really have to get better. Because whether or not you win enough games to where, okay, you're not going to be in the playoffs, but you got a good record or whatever, or you don't win and don't get anywhere, and now you have a high first round pick or not, you got to show that your team is improving in some level. So I have the Cowboys winning, blowout kind of fashion game, 28-6. And before we go, we're going to discuss Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll on Monday was fired. It was time. It was very much time. I'm not against the firing of Brian Daboll, even though I don't think it was time to, at this point, to do it. I think he should have waited. Because no Malik Neighbors, he's injured for the year. Cam Scatterboo's injured for the rest of the year. And I get that. But this team needed a different direction. So you want to make a move. You end up promoting to interim head coach Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator. Tim Kelly, who I believe is the quarterback coach, is now the offensive coordinator. Wouldn't be surprised if Kafka calls the plays. Jackson, though, is in concussion protocol at the moment. and Kafka, the interim head coach, announced Jameis Winston will be the starter and not Russell Wilson. So I wasn't surprised by that either. The thing that surprised me the most of this game, of this firing, was that Joe Schoen was not fired with him. They both came in together from Buffalo. Why you hired Schoen, you hired Daboll for the same reasoning. Because they already had a relationship. Schoen was the assistant general manager of the Bills when Daboll was the offensive coordinator of the Bills. So there was a relationship there. The fact you're going to keep him around, Schoen around, but not keep around Daboll or whatever, that was not a good choice here. Because now you're in this same position that the Bears were in, where the head coach is fired, the GM is staying around, but also we're going to hire a head coach after the previous head coach hired or drafted a quarterback. It doesn't make any sense. Remember, the Bears did this for a long time. They've done this. Whether it was Justin Fields, it was beforehand, They do it all the time. It was Justin Fields. Now it's Caleb Williams. And then when it was Matt Eberflus who drafted Caleb Williams, Matt Eberflus gets fired the day after Thanksgiving. Brian Daboll doesn't make it that far. He makes it to about 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. But yeah, he was fired. It doesn't work. It did not work. And that's why I'm surprised that when the Giants said, oh yeah, Joe Schoen's going to stay around. He's going to be the GM even into next year. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. This team is just not built well. The offensive line, they're not very good. Their secondary's not that great. They're good at other positions, but I would love when I was laughing when ESPN Adam Schefter tried to say, this will be a coveted job. It's not a coveted job. You need another wide receiver. You need a whole new offensive line. You need a good secondary. You don't have one. There's concerns here. And that starts from Joe Schoen too, and not just Brian Daboll. You need a whole new team, a whole new system, and you don't have it. And I don't like it when the head coach gets thrown on his butt, but the GM's is not right behind him. I don't like when that happens. Because it's not just the coaching fault. I know Jacksonville has been evaluated for concussions 4 times, but Joe Schoen put this team together too. It's not one person. It's multiple people. They are held responsible too. You can't just say, throw the baby out with bath water, and in case the baby's Brian Daboll, and out comes the bath water. And we're blaming all the failure on him and not the coaching staff as a whole and the general manager and the front office as a whole. Can't do that. But let me know in the comments, did Brian Daboll deserve to be fired before Thanksgiving? Let me know in the comments. And who do you have winning this week? For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hebert. Out.